Hey, I'm going to be showing you how to make these gorgeous little fox studs. This is a brick stitch using Miyuki Delica beads. Be with me a minute and I will show you the beads that I use. These are the Miyuki Delicas. I have gold luster rose, I have matte black, and I have sienna for these foxes. You're going to need thread and a needle. I'm using Nymo and I have conditioned it using my beeswax conditioner, which looks like this, and I'll show you quickly how I do that. So I've already conditioned the thread, so I'm just going to quickly show you how I do it. So basically I just run the thread through the wax using my finger to put pressure on there, and what that's going to do is give you a coating of the wax all around the thread. That stops the thread from knotting and makes it a bit nicer to go through the beads. I have my beads in a little palette. You can put your beads in on a plate or just get a similar little palette. This was from the dollar shop, but it helps me to keep my colours individual. That's how I like to do it. Okay, so this is the pattern we are working on. Let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see better. Okay, so here's our beads. We're going to start with a black and work our way this way, and then we're going to work this way down the piece. So it may look a bit funny while you're beading it because we're not beading it this way, we are beading the design sideways. So to get the first row we actually need to do a stitch called ladder stitch. I'm going to just quickly draw how we're going to do it and then show you how I bead it. So I'm just going to draw on the tablet quickly to show you the thread pattern and then we'll bead it. So we're going to take our first two beads. This is the black and this is the sienna. We're going to thread it through the black, through the sienna, and that's the way our thread's going. We're going to take the thread around and back through that first bead. And what that's going to do is when we pull it tight, the beads are going to sit like that. So here is our black, our sienna, and our thread is sitting here now. To get to our next step in the design, we're going to need to take this thread back through the sienna bead, so it'll be coming out this way. So let me get that started to show you. I'm taking my black and my sienna. Just get it to focus. There's my black and there's my sienna. I'm going to pull it down the thread till there is a bit of a tail, probably about 10-15 centimeters. Okay, and now I want to go back up through that black bead. Now it's always very tricky when you're first starting out your first rows because things are a little bit looser. So when I've pulled, there are my two little beads, and currently the needle and thread are coming out the top of my black bead. So to set up the next row, I'm going to take it down through that sienna bead. Okay, in our pattern, there was one black and then 6 sienna. So now I just need to add my sienna beads individually. So I've just popped another one on my needle, and we're going to continue on with that ladder stitch. I'm going to go, so the thread at the moment is coming out of the bottom, and let me set this up so I can show you. It's coming out the bottom of that sienna one, so I want to go through the top of that bead we just put there and pull down. Now we have 2 sienna beads and a black bead, and we're going to take our thread is currently coming out of the first sienna at the bottom. We're going to put it from up the bottom of the second sienna bead. And so we should have 3 beads. And what we're trying to do is create these little bridges of thread. So you've got one here, and that's the basis. So what I'm going to go do is add my other 4 sienna beads, and then we'll work on the next row. So we now have 6 sienna beads and 1 black bead, and we have all these gorgeous little bridges, which is now what we're going to be beading from. So I'm just going to get our pattern back out and show you our next step. Okay, so we've done our first row. Okay, so we're here. This is where our thread's coming out of. We now need to do our second row. So we're going to add a light gold one and another sienna one. And I'm going to show you how we step up. But I'm just going to explain that ladder stitch a bit more. Okay, so here's the top of the beads at the moment. And basically our bridges are coming out like this from each of the beads. We're going to be taking our needle. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 beads. This will be the gold and the sienna. And we're going to stitch them on through our thread. And then we're going to take our thread underneath this bridge here. And then when we pull tight, these beads will stack on top. So you will get this kind of scenario. So our 2 new beads are here, and at the moment our thread is coming out this way. We're going to take this thread and we're going to go back up through this bead, the second bead we put on, and then what we're going to do is loop through the first bead we put on and then back up through the second bead. So I'll show you how I do that. So all of our thread gets hidden in these beads. So let me get my beadwork and we'll do that. So on my thread, I've put my gold bead first and then my sienna bead. And what we're looking at doing now, and this will be really finicky the first time you do it because your threads will be pretty loose, is we're going to go through this bridge here. And we're going to just pull. And at the moment our beads look kind of wonky donkey. So our thread is coming out through that bridge, and let me just angle so you can see. And what we want to do is get them to sit nicer, those beads we just added on. So I'm going to take my needle through that sienna bead, and then I'm going to pull up and pull it tight, and we should have them stacking on top of each other like a brick. So just to tidy things up and to strengthen it, I'm going to go back through the gold bead and pull, and then I'm going to go back up through the sienna bead we added, and what that will do is that'll hide that thread in between, and we're now set up for our next stitch. So I'm going to continue on with 2 more sienna beads, and I'll just show you how I work on those bridge. So now we're going to add 1 bead at a time, and I'm going to bead into the next bridge, which is here. So I've got my thread coming out of my next bridge, and I just wanted to show you, which is very hard to show. And I'm going to pull through. As I say, this first couple of rows are going to be a little bit messy, and it feels really loose at the moment. So what I want to do is take that needle back up through the sienna bead that we just added. So there we go, and then pull up. Okay, and we're going to take 1 more sienna. We're going to find our next bridge, which is here. We're going to go through the bridge, so you can see the needle is through the thread there, and we're going to pull it until that bead stacks up loosely but nicely next door. And we're just going to go back up through the bottom of that bead and pull through. Next in the design, we're going to actually add a couple more gold ones for the ear. So I'm just going to add the gold one. Find the next bridge. So here's the next bridge. So we've got a needle through the bridge. I've just left this really loose. You can pull it down till it sits next door. And then back up through that bead we just added. Okay. And one more. Next bridge you can see is here. Can be really tricky. There's the bridge. Pull that so it's sitting next door to its neighbour. And then we want to go back up through the bottom of that bead we just added. Okay, now you can see we have one more bridge left. So we've got one more bead to add. So we're going to go through that bridge. There's the bridge. Just be gentle with this one because our black thread underneath is a little bit looser. You can see it's all sitting a bit wonky at the moment. Go back up through that bead we just added. Okay, so we have row 2 added. Now row 3 is going to be a little bit different because we don't need to step up here. Our design actually continues dropping down. So what I like to do is I like to step up, set my bead up to come out of this gold one right here. So I'm going to go down through the gold. I'm going to go down through, which one do I want to do? Down through this sienna one next door to the black. I'm going to go up through the next door sienna. And then to get my needle into position, I'm going to go back up through that gold bead. There. And just pull it all tight. And we're ready for our next row. So in our next row, we're going to follow the pattern and we're going to add one sienna and one gold. And what I'm going to do is go through that bridge. So here's where our thread's coming out of the second bead, that first bridge after the bead that we're coming out of, and just pull it all, and then they're all going to sit a little bit wonky for a minute. You can sort of pop them into place, but now we need to tighten up the work. So I'm going to go back up through the gold, and then we're going to go down through the sienna, so you can see it, down through the sienna, and then back up through the gold. So we're set up to add our next bead. And just like the other row, we're going to go down and add all our beads in these bridges, and then I'm going to show you what we do at the end. Okay, so as you can see, we've got to the end of our bridges, but in the pattern I actually need to add one more bead. So I'm going to show you how we do that. So basically it's just a ladder stitch on the end of this bead. So for this one it's a gold, so I'm going to take that gold. Now I'm coming out through the top of the sienna bead. I'm just going to move my thread out of the way so you can see. Okay, I want to go up through the bottom of that sienna bead, Keep pulling my thread through, and it's going to sit next door. And what I'm going to do is then go back and tighten everything up. So I'm going to go back down that bead we just added. I'm going to go, getting all tangled here. So we're coming down through that gold bead. I actually want to go, let me get this so I can show you. It's all loose still, so I'm actually going to go back down that gold bead before. This will pull everything into place. Okay, now we need to get it back into position. So I'm going to go back up this sienna bead next door, or attempt to. There we go. Back up through the black bead. Again, or attempt to. There we go. Now I am trying to do this on camera, so bear with me because it is a little bit harder to do. So right now we're coming out of the black bead, but I actually want to get to this gold bead. So I'm going to go down through the sienna. There's the sienna. And then, oops, get that out of the way. And then back up through that gold bead, the last one that we added. I'll just pull everything up. So there we go. So we're going to continue on. So our first row, sorry, our next row is going to continue on. So this is we're going to add 2 beads to this first bridge, and then we're going to go all the way till we run out of bridges. And then when we come back down the other way, we're going to decrease. So we're going to get the bead, we're going to get into position of that second bead in the row, and then bead all the way down to the end of the bridge and ladder stitch 1 more bead on the end here. So let me just get our pattern back out. Okay, so here's our pattern again. We have done row 1, row 2, and row 3, and we're coming out of this bead. So we're going to do that increase on that first bridge, which is here. We're going to add a gold and a sienna, and then we're going to bridge all the way up till we've run out of bridges. And then here we're going to go back in, so the last one we added, and bead through these beads until we can get back up to here. And then we're going to add 2 sienna and work our way down, and then we're going to ladder stitch on this black one on the end. So I'm going to go and do that and then come back, and then we would have completed. Okay, so we've done this row, and this row. So we're up to this row here. Okay, we're going to, we're currently here. So we're going to go up this row all the way. We're going to do 2 here until we run out of bridges. And then we're going to set up our thread into here, coming out of this bead. And then we're going to add our 2 sienna and work our way down to here, where we run out of bridges, and then we're going to ladder stitch this one on. So let me do that for you. So I have, and I'll just zoom in so we can just focus on these beads. We have a gold and a sienna, and I'm going to go through that first bridge. Or attempt to. So there's our first bridge on this row, and we've got 2, which means we're stepping up. So they will stack out a little bit lower each time if we keep doing that. I'm going to go back up through that sienna one, and now they're sitting nicely. I'm going to go back up, sorry, back down through the gold one, and then back up carefully through that sienna one we added. And now I'm set up. So this row is all siennas from now, and I've got think 5 to add, so I'm just going to go away and add that. So we have one more bridge left in this row, so we're going to add one more sienna bead. Or attempt to. So there it is going through the bridge. Let's get that to focus. Pull through. It's going to sit nicely. Just going to go and tighten it up by going back through the bottom and pulling all the way up. Okay, so we have one more decrease to do. So I'm just going to set up my thread in this to come out of this hole. So I'm just going to again move my needle around until I get it to where I want it to be. So going through the beads to hide the thread. Go up through this gold one. And then I'm going to go up through that second sienna one, so we're sitting where we want to be sitting. Try not to pull your thread through there. Lovely. So now I'm going to work my bridges down. So I've got there. I'm going to go for this first bridge, but I'm going to add on 2 siennas. So I have my 2 siennas on. I'm now going to, I've got dog fur everywhere. I'm going to work down till my last bridge. So and in this row it calls for 5 siennas, a gold, and then a black for the fox's nose. So 1, 2, 3. See how much easier it is to thread now that there's a bit more work to hold on to. It's always hard when you've got those first few rows, so be patient. You will have to practice a little bit to get your tension correct. We've got 4 and 5. Now I need to add a gold one onto my last bridge. So there it is there. Okay, to finish this row, I still need one more bead, but I've run out of bridges. So I'm just going to ladder stitch the last bead on. So I'm coming up out of the top of that gold. I'm going to go back up through the bottom of that gold, creating a loop. And that's going to encourage that black bead to sit next door. And then I'm going to go set up to the rest of my design. So here, I actually want to be coming out of this gold one, because I'm going to now be, this is the first half. I've already just passed the first half. I'm now going to repeat this design in reverse on the other side to complete his face. So I'm going to go back down through the black. I'm going to go through the gold from the row below and get stuck in the background. And I'm going to go up through that sienna next door to the gold we've just gone through. See it there? Okay, and then we're going to go back up through that gold. Now I'm literally doing everything in mirror, so I'm going to be adding this row here to this row. So I need a gold and a sienna, and I'm going to go back up that bead, that bridge next door to the thread I'm coming out of, right there. And now I'm going to tighten up those beads. We're going back through the sienna, down through the gold, and up through the sienna, so I'm set up for my next ones. And then I'm going to continue along all these bridges. Okay, so if you look, we're just doing a mirror of this row here. So if you're looking across, we've got this one. We actually still need to add one more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ladder stitch the last sienna one on. So we're coming out of the top of that bead. I'm going to go through the bottom to create a loop and encourage that new sienna to sit next door. And what I'm going to do is tighten everything up and get into position for the next row. Okay, I'm in position for the next row, and I'm just going to get so you can see. Okay, so we've just done this row here. We now need to do this row, and we're going to continue increasing. So we're going to add a sienna, a gold, and go through the first bridge, and just carry on all the way till you get to the end. So I'll let you go away and do that. Hopefully you've got the hang of it now, and then when we come back with your finished fox, I'm going to show you what we do to finish off the ends and then attach the stud. So you've added all your final rows on, and you've got this gorgeous little fox. So we want to get rid of the thread now. So the way I do it is I just basically weave in and out of a few beads until it's all hidden away, and then trim it off. So just going to do this roughly so you can sort of see. I would weave it a bit more normally, just in and out of those. You know, you can go all around, just make sure you're going in those beads so it hides the threads, and you can give it a little tug. Okay, when you're finished doing that, then you can just pull it through the end, and I just take a pair of scissors and trim off the threads as closely as I can. I've got these massive scissors, but little nail clippers are actually better because they're smaller. Okay, so what I do to secure the stud, I usually use a little bit of super glue. Now normally what I would do is just put a dab of super glue and on the beadwork and a dab of super glue on the stud and sit it down there, and then once it's complete, what I actually do is go in, and I've got a UV cure resin kit that I use, and I actually cure this whole back for stability. Now if you're only making a couple of pairs, that may be a little bit more excess materials to buy. So what you can do is you could just take your super glue like I've done here and just sort of spread it, goop it all out, and that just makes this beadwork a little bit more rigid, so when you're putting the stud on, the beadwork isn't bending. And then we have our final little finished fox. So what I might go back into is the tablet and just go over some of those stitches a bit more. Okay, so in brick stitch, or should I say if we have our ladder stitch first, we've got all of our beads sitting nicely next to each other, and then our next beads are going to stagger on top. So if we're coming out, our thread is coming out down this way, but we actually want to go up on this row, what I do is I take my thread and I pull it through this bead, down through this bead, up through this bead, and then up through this bead. So your bead will be coming out of that third bead in, and then what you can do is it sets you up, so then you can take your thread and go through just this bead here, and then back up through this one, and it set you up for your next row. If you've got your beadwork here and you want to go decrease a row or go down a row, how I do it, and I guess that's just how I do it, other people may do it differently, is I set up my thread so it's coming out of this one. So here's all of our little bridges of thread bridges, and here's our thread coming out of here, and then what I'll do is I'll add on 2 beads to my thread, and then I will go under this bridge here and back up and pull them tight, and then that will make them sit in here. Cool. And then what you'll do is then you'll take that, so there's your thread bridge, and your thread's currently coming out of here, then I will take that back up through this bead, back down through this bead, and then back up again. So you're going through the thread multiple times, so that's why I like to use the Nymo. You could use Fireline as well, just use a lightweight. The heavier it is, the more times you've got to go through that thread, the less fun it's going to be with your needle. And that's why I like using the a big eye needle. They're pretty bendy, so this is what a big eye needle looks like when you actually open it up. And you can really easily put your thread in there. So yeah, that's an introduction to brick stitch and ladder stitch really, and a cute pair of fox studs. So give it a go. Thank you for watching.